Thank you, Rob. Yes, and good morning, everybody. I'm delighted to be here with all of you. And today, I want to say just a few words of appreciation for the contributions of all who enrich our communities with their history and culture and creativity. And to begin, we meet on the traditional homelands of the Puyallup tribe of Indians, acknowledging our debt to their stewardship of this region and to the need for action in addressing the continuing effects of historical trauma. We're reminded also of the contributions of other communities. We have many monthly celebrations to note. Today is the end of Arab American Heritage Month that was recognized at the federal level in 2021. May has been celebrated as Asian American Pacific Islander Month since 1990, in part marking the anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, primarily by Chinese immigrants. And we anticipate the celebration of Cinco de Mayo coming up next week, which historically was a celebration of Mexican resistance to foreign intervention. And on Sunday, May 1st, much of the world celebrates International Workers' Day. This came about, as some of you may know, to commemorate the struggle for the 8-hour workday. And it was created after an incident in 1886 called the Haymarket Affair, in which a demonstration was organized and the organizers were found guilty of a bomb that went off during the demonstration that they didn't have any relationship to, but it was a very polarized time. And so in President Cleveland, though some of us may not remember this, declared Labor Day in September, and in part, I think, to take attention away from the radical notion of the workers' rights that were part of that. So ironically, much of the world that celebrates May 1st as May Day and Workers' Rights Day know about the Haymarket incident, while many of us in the United States, its origin, have kind of forgotten about it. So May Day and the effects of seeking just wages and working conditions makes me appreciate the role of those who work every day to mitigate the effects of homelessness, especially outreach workers and shelter housing staff who may be living very close to the edge themselves. And the counselors, the grant writers, the creators of useful websites, the lawyers, the city and county workers, those who are able to meet here with us at 9 o'clock on Friday mornings, and those who are out being with the people who need the resources. So all of these celebrations are historically significant, and creating special holidays and weeks and months reminds us that we're interconnected in essential ways we too often forget. As the political origins of many of these celebrations suggests, such symbolic honoring can take the pressure off of efforts to achieve fundamental social changes, and so can feel like window dressing rather than actually a commitment to change. But we can still center our awareness on our interconnections, and Walt Whitman acknowledges this at the most basic level in his Song for Myself, a poem that's often seen as a celebration of the individual. But he says in the 1892 version, in a time also polarized politically, he says, "I celebrate myself and sing myself, and I assume, you shall assume, for every atom belonging to me, as good belongs to you." For every atom belonging to me, as good belongs to you. Not a bad theme for our being basically interconnected and bridging our divides and appreciating and fairly compensating the good work of our companions. So welcome. And we're about to start our meeting. So those of you who are new, just wanted to remind you of our norms for our time together. We have the raise hand function for when you want to be recognized. It helps Rob to see who's in order for being heard. We ask you to keep yourself muted when you're not speaking, because background noise is quite distracting. Similarly, to turn off your video if you're doing something other than just paying attention or participating in this event. And then we do use the chat as a really powerful place for networking. So put your questions in there, especially if you're new, someone will respond. If you have an announcement to make about an event, say it several times perhaps. People do come and go, and they could hear your information at various times. Just use it to put in your information about yourself if you want to have people contact you. So use it during the meeting. It's not disrespectful at all. And then I think we can have a little bit of time here for anyone who is here for the first time or coming back after a while away. to just use the hand function or raise your hand if you can't do that, if you're on the phone or not able to be visible. And we'll have you introduce yourself. Jasmine.
Hi, I'm Jasmine Rattery. I am Sunshine Harper's intern for the chat program. So this is my second time attending this meeting.
Well, welcome and good luck on all your work.
And who else is with you?
Oh, I have two children. They're homesick, so I have a 3- and 4-year-old.
Well, thank you very much
Riley.
for being with us. Yeah, Riley. Hi, Riley.
Dawn, I see you're raising your hand.
Good morning. I'm here just, well, Verna Lilly suggested I attend a meeting. I've been talking to her about what I might do as far as volunteering goes. She's pointed out to me some of the things that are possible, and I was somewhat overwhelmed. So I was really just wondering what I could do and where. So thank you all.
Well, this is a great place to hang out, Dawn, and it is kind of overwhelming, but we take little bites and work on them together, and it is good work to do. So thanks for coming to check it out.
Sure, thank you.
I can't see the whole group. Rob, if there's anybody else that's wanting to introduce themselves, if you could recognize them, that'd be great.
Great. I see our good friend Monique Brown.
I just wanted to be recognized.
Well, excellent. You are recognized. Good morning, Monique. We hope to hear more from you soon. Thanks for getting here. So thank you all, and let's begin.
All right. Well, thank you as always, Rosemary, for the thoughtful introduction and start to this morning's meeting. Again, I'll reiterate, please do use the chat as a resource. We do capture the chat at the end of every meeting, and it's posted on the pchomeless.org website, along with the video and the transcripts of each meeting. So that is a great resource that folks can search for answers if they're not able to be here on a given morning. So please use that. So let's shift to our first item of that we do every week, and that is asking folks for updates of what they're seeing on the streets this week. This segment is really meant to provide an opportunity for those who are doing outreach to our houseless neighbors to understand what the new needs are, what is changing on the streets across the county this week. So I open the floor to those who are doing direct outreach, and hopefully we have some good things to share. And I see Monique with her hand up to start us off.
This time I'm being serious. I'm for real this time. So I was driving to church on Sunday down Yakima, and I saw a new group of people. I don't know if this has been talked about because it's been a while since I've been on here, but a new row of folks. They're on Yakima, probably 25th area, 21st area. They were there, gone. Now I see some back, so I'm not sure. I don't know if any of you are Facebook friends of mine. However, if you noted yesterday, we have porta potties at the encampment, ADA and 2 others. We have hand washing stations. And I understand that no later than next Friday, we will have electricity. If that is the case, then we are going to start just bringing folks in and getting them ready. We are all set. Costco donated a new carport for our kitchen tent. We bought a second one for the eating area. And so we're putting all that together. And right now on our list, we have 28 veterans that will be in, and then we have 2 on our standby. So we're ready. We are ready.
That is fantastic news. Let's see. Next on the list, phone number ending in 5552.
Good morning, everyone. It's Sarah from the Downtown Tacoma Rescue Mission. I just wanted to give a positive update that we've had so far for the month of April, about 20 successful move-outs. A lot of them are relocations out of state. And I am planning an empowerment day at the end of May at the downtown campus. We're trying to get haircuts, trying to get the VA to come, medical provider. I've noticed that a lot of people are feeling discouraged when they leave the campus, that they feel like they're just going to get turned away because they're experiencing homelessness. No one's going to want to hire them. No one's going to give them, a second glance. So my idea is to bring people and agencies to the campus to interact with everyone and let them know that, they are a valid individual, and to try to get services that benefit them. And I could post more of that when I get more details on it.
That sounds good. And Monique, I see you raise your hand again.
I'm sorry. I'm going to get it together this morning. I don't know who was speaking just now, but if Fob Hope could table at that event, that would be awesome. Second thing, I don't know if anybody works with families, but I don't know if you can see this airplane. Can you see that airplane? I have boxes of these little stuffed airplanes, and I would love for somebody to come get them and put them in the hands of babies. So
I work with families.
Say again?
I work with families.
Okay, Erica, at my site at 8208 Pacific on the South 82nd Street side. If you enter there, I will give you 3 to 4 boxes of these lovely Delta Airline stuffed planes.
Can you please put that in the chat so I can go back? I don't have notes right now. I'll
sure
be
will.
introducing myself in just a little while, and you'll get to know a little bit about me. That's really awesome. Thank you.
I'll put my info in the chat.
I also work with families. I work at the Tiny Home Village on 6th and Orchard. So I got babies.
Okay, well, we'll share the wealth. We'll split them in half. Okay. 8208. I'll put it in the chat. Thank you. Sorry, you guys. I won't say another word. Promise.
No, don't make that promise, because we like to hear from you, Monique. Especially when you got marshmallow shaped stuffed airplanes. So.
Hey, Monique, it's Sarah from the downtown campus. If you want to reach out to me to join the empowerment event. Sorry, I'm on my phone. My kids love to touch my laptop. That's why I always join via phone. My email is saraw@trm.org.
Got it. Thank you.
And I put that in the chat as well. So thank you, Sarah.
You so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other folks with updates from the streets this week. Richard, I see your mic on.
No, my mic's on. This is not as happy a discussion. Second Yakima, North Second Yakima has had a small encampment that's been bouncing around, and over the last couple of weeks has generated a lot of really unfortunate commentary on social media by the neighbors, talking about harassment, threats of violence, using all kinds of stuff. And it's kind of an unfortunate thing. One of the issues that I run into a lot out there is how people talk about the issue. And when we've got these fairly progressive, educated North Enders taking some really reprehensible commentaries, it's pretty distressing. But a couple days ago, there was a notice posted on the public strip that was going to be landscaped. And I thought, well, this is interesting. I have not seen this yet. But what it was one of the neighbors who has the wherewithal got a permit from the city to do landscaping where the encampment is or was. So they were going to spend the money to buy the rocks and get the heavy equipment and put in Soviet style rock barriers so people wouldn't camp there. The campers, of course, lingered, and they'll move a few feet. Then the next day, I think it was Thursday, a person was arrested for accusation of homicide, and the police scattered debris all over the street in the vicinity, picking through for evidence, I assume. By the end of the day, my days run together, but I think it was the end of Thursday. The city had been out and had cleaned up the mess. And the homeowner was doing the work. So it wasn't the city doing the work, but he had a front loader and was scattering rocks up and down on the public parking strip. Kind of creative, kind of unfortunate, but if that's the way things are going to move over there, it's worth keeping an eye on. I've talked to a number of the campers who, again, will move about half a block. They're hanging out around Stadium Thriftway and aren't going anywhere immediately. The other response, a block up where Michelle has her encampment, the next door neighbor went out and bought a bunch of the aluminum planter boxes, and instead of boulders, at least has where they're going to plant some kind of flowers or whatever as their method of discouraging camping. All of which is to say, this is really a lousy way for neighbors to be thinking about how to respond to encampments. I'm going to be doing some interviews with neighbors over there in the coming week, just talking with them about how they think about people when they move into their neighborhoods. But anyway, it's kind of a mess. It's not a huge encampment, but it's an unfortunate way on how some of our North Slope neighbors are responding to an encampment, and I'll be keeping an eye on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Richard. It's something I wanted to mention as well, that because I live close to that site as well, I've been seeing the chatter online where people are encouraging each other to turn on sprinklers to keep people to chase people off the sites, playing loud music, confronting those who are homeless. So the challenge is that folks are just, it's disturbing language and the sort of thing that could lead, unfortunately, to direct conflict. And so that's one of the things that I'd like all of us as a group to think about, and maybe we'll do this as a breakout conversation in the future, to talk about maybe what members of the coalition can do to help try to lower the temperature in that conflict between people who don't have somewhere to stay and the people who are housed nearby. Because especially as we get into the summer months, I worry about those kinds of conflicts. Teresa, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I want to say that that's happening here on this block too. We have a lot more people on the block than we usually do. And so like we had one of our taillights got burned by a fire that somebody was just, they were building a fire because there's no place for them to build a fire. And so I get it, but I also get how my neighbors are feeling. So I'm always trying to talk to the people in the camp about how important it is that we keep good relationships in the whole neighborhood. I think it's a two-way street. And I totally get people who are trying to run a business. This really makes it hard. So I think it's important for us to do that outreach and in-reach and around reach. But I also think to pretend that we're going to make things nice for everybody without taking a stand as a city and a county to create spaces where people can camp, like what Monique is doing, that's what we need. We are moving the seats on the Titanic again, and we need safe campsites. So I see the coalition's job as those two things, helping to make things better while we have what we have, but really insisting that change. It's not right for the neighbors like these neighbors to be, people are not normally so crazy. They get crazy because they feel like they have no space that is safe and quiet and good, and everybody deserves it, whether they have a house or not.
Thank you for that, Teresa. And Verna, I see your hand up as well.
The Medical Reserve Corps and community health workers are collaborating on a public health pilot project at encampments where we're emphasizing STD education and prevention. We're handing out condoms and informational flyers. We're also handing out some healthy snacks as a hook to get the conversation started. And we've been at the 7th Street and Tacoma Avenue side across from the First Methodist Church a couple of weeks. And we may move to another site, and we're hoping that it'll grow into more of an ongoing outreach from our two organizations with a public health emphasis. So if anyone is interested in advising or has suggestions, I'll put my email in the chat.
Thank you, Verna. And do we have other folks who'd like to share what they're seeing on the streets this week? All right, so if there is additional information that you would like to share and you don't want to do so publicly in the meeting, you can definitely put that in the chat. Just another reminder about that resource. And let's move on to our next item in the agenda. So every week we've been doing community spotlights, and this week I'd like to invite Erica Snell to talk about the Tiny Home Project. So Erica, you have the floor.
Hello, I'm Erica. I'm gonna actually turn my video on. I've had some spotty reception at my house, so forgive me, but I'm gonna be in a public setting. One moment. Well, not very public, but.
No problem.
Okay, hi, I'm Erica. And we are ATC Center located on 104th and Portland Avenue. We are starting a project, and we are working, we have a few affiliations with Clover Park Technical College. We are creating a zero energy build site for homelessness. We're targeting families right now at the moment. Our project will host about 40 homes. The longevity of the program is, we don't have a timeline, but we're gonna be reintroducing families back into the community with programs for training and job development. And that'll be affiliated through Clover Park as well. Our project, we would like to expand it to helping men and veterans as well. We're in the beginning stages. Our first phase was the land development, and our second stage is getting everybody informed and doing some outreach to let everyone know that this project is starting. We take referrals from anywhere. So any referrals that come our way, I'll put our contact information in the chat settings. Right now we're seeking partnerships to help because this is a big project. Our biggest partnership with Clover Park is going to be very helpful for building costs. Their students are going to come out and build the sites for us, so it can go up very fast, where we just supply the building materials. And for our budget analysis, we won't have any utility costs. And so this will help with our net zero clean energy that we're also diving deep into as a community. We'll be offering biogas. And if you're not familiar with what that is, all the toilet systems that are installed are compostable. Your food wastes are compostable. It's just like a normal toilet, it flushes, but then the gas that is created is turned into fuel for cooking, and then it's solar powered. So this is going to be a great project for women and children right now to get safe housing. We have a child care center already operating and a business development center already operating. So we're just trying to get these houses up as fast as possible so that we can start serving the community and replacing some people into safe, clean environment. We are very familiar with the broken window concept we think that everybody deserves a clean, safe environment. So our homes are going to be more of like a resort style. And that's kind of a synopsis of our project that we're doing.
Fantastic. So do you have a sense of what's the timeline for your project?
So Clover Park works quarterly with their students, and their next to start from the ground up with their students, that will be in September for build outs. However, there's an extensive amount of land development that does need to happen in this area. We have about 4.5 acres. We're considering doing safe parking site as well, but the building materials for that are going to be a little heavy. I know that we can have at least up to 8 vehicles without permitting for safe parking that we're looking into, so we can start serving the community right now. But we do have to be mindful of what we are allowing into the property with the child care services already set up. And that's something that we're, within our program, we're looking, how do we control background checks and, situations in that sense. As we get this project further developed, we're going to come into situations like these. That we are going to need some input because we are new to building this program.
Great. So can you share, what's the location again?
It's 104th in Portland Avenue. The exact site location at property is 10522 22nd Avenue East. And if you were to Google Around the Clock Child Care Center or ATC Center, it would take you to that site. And then it's all the back property. The Portland Avenue exit kind of is right along the property. So there's a great way to get the access point for our citizens in need.
Great. So do you have a moment for questions from folks?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so anybody with questions for Erica? Yeah, Teresa?
I was waiting because I've already talked today, but somebody else, if you raise your hand, I'll make myself brief. Erica, thank you so much for coming. This is a great program. I'm very excited to hear about it and to actually see you after just having other communications with you. There are some people on this call who are great resources. Joe, I think, is here from, Joe Purva is here. He knows a lot about the tiny house stuff, as does, and then Paula Anderson, who's doing safe parking. I know that she would be willing to have a chat with you about that and how you can do what you're talking about, or how she might be able to give you some advice and resources for how to do that. But I'm curious about this is a little off the beam, but the composting toilet thing, that's always been an issue for anyone getting permits for that. And I wonder, is there something new in that area that you were able to get that through?
So there's different types of composting toilets. A lot of them you have to be really hands-on with. This is a system. It's completely plumbed. There's no manual interface that you would have to worry about for like any back tie, like E. coli's, or it's completely plumbed in. The residents, they don't have to be so involved with it. It's not invasive. So composting toilets are different than biogas. I mean, the concept is the same, but it's different. The reason why we went with this, obviously, because we want zero emission, just clean energy, and we want to cut the cost of all the plumbing that the site would take. We are going to have a shower room though as well. In the business development plans will be an open 24-hour like type shower room, because the houses aren't going to have. We're gonna have 2 sites. So we're gonna have houses that are fully built out, and those are the level up. So when you come in and you onboard the basic sites. We're going to get everyone in, see where their needs are met. They'll have the community shower room area. They'll have access to a mental health counselor. And we'll start figuring out what are your needs right now. And as they move into the program and level up, we'll have a more, I can't say permanent, but it gives them a sense of, okay, I've made it to the next step and I'm doing good, and you need to put those values in. So it'll have a secondary program that they move into where it'll feel more like a home. Those take obviously a little bit more money to build out. And so that'll be on a separate side of the property where they'll have more access to the career development center and stuff. So circling back to your question about the permitting, I think the difference is that the biogas is a complete plumbing system versus composting, where you're taking it out, you have to dump it somewhere. You're gonna have a lot of fecal matter coming through with 40 houses. So I can see where the permitting problem would be there, but it's not with biogas. Yeah.
Awesome. Monique, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Erica, thank you for this. This is very exciting to hear. You said level up to more permanent housing. Is this a permanent housing situation, or is it all transitional?
It's all transitional, but we want to create a program where you're feeling a sense of accomplishment, right? And so by creating that program where anybody moving into any situation is going to be unhinged and nerved. And we want to create the program to where we're bringing them in, safe place, in more of a temporary setting, so we can figure out what are your needs, where do you need to be placed. And if it's the longevity is that we can give you these developmental guides for, simple careers like CNA or EMT, or just simple trades that we can get them into the community, even in working in the child care facility or whatever the situation be. We can figure that in the first phase of the program, move them into the second phase. And then we don't have the timeline on when they actually have to leave, but it's just, that second step program. We obviously want them to be able to go out and maintain and move through the system. But for us, we don't want to have a setting where it's complacent or it's comfortable. We want to give the tools so that you can be successful outside of the program.
Yes, ma'am. I actually have a level up concept myself. And if I could just make a suggestion on my plan, when they level up, they wrap around. So they come back and help those in phase one to kind of be that, lived experience person to support them. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I think I might have saw him on here. I do have one of my business partners, Parad. I'd like to introduce if he was able to make the call. I'm not sure if he's here, but if he is,
yeah, I am here.
There you are, Tarad. Okay, I'm going to mute myself. Is it okay that I switch this over to Tarad for a moment?
Sure, yeah. We've got time.
Hey, and this just takes a second. I'm just introducing myself. You guys have met me before. I've been here for about 5 weeks now. We just moved out to Bonnie Lake. Erica is a good friend of mine from high school, actually, and she actually lives not too far from me. And she came over to bring me a housewarming present, and we got to talking, and she's like, I've got this land, 5 acres, that I want to start a tiny home project on. I'm like, oh, wow, that's exactly what I'm doing. And she's like, okay, so we kind of linked up, and we're collaborating. We're partnering with the 4C Coalition. It's a nonprofit that works with at-risk youth in Seattle. It's been around for about 18 years. Hazel Cameron is the executive director. And so she's going to be kind of navigating some of our funding side of things. And Eric is handling, she's really grounded in with groundwork and, business plans. She started her ATC, which is around the clock childcare during COVID, and it's doing amazing. It's got 36 kids, and it's next door to the land that we're going to be developing. And so, we've got a lot of things in the works. We're thinking with ground development and everything, we want to have a established program by September. And so that's kind of our timeline. And so, just wanted to say hi.
Awesome. Well, it's great to hear that the two of you are working together. Are you thinking that, because I know you had talked to us before about doing something maybe out in Bonnie Lake, was this kind of going to be a combined effort now, or are you thinking two sites?
No, this is it now. And so we were just thinking Pierce County, because I moved out of Kings. I work for Mary's Place Seattle as a prevention specialist, and I also work for the 4C Coalition as a mentor and a recruiting agent. And then we have Seattle Cares, which recruits Black male mentors to work with youth. And so I've been doing this for a long time. I grew up in it actually, because it's a family business. And yeah, so she just happened to have the land available and have the project in mind. And so it was literally God sent. And so, yeah, I don't see any necessarily stops other than funding and land development. And so there's a few questions that we have and things that, because we've never built the tiny home project. We definitely know the nonprofit industry very well, but when it comes to building, I'm at a loss. And Erica kind of holds the ball on that, because she's already started it and done it. And she's actually has a tiny home on her development right now that she's actually been frequenting while taking care of the daycare. And so
we've piloted the zero energy home to make sure that it's efficient. So we're actually living in it right now to pilot what issues might arise to wean them out before we bring all these families in.
Fantastic. Well, I really appreciate that you were able to come and talk with us, both of you actually. And I think as this moves forward, it'd be great to hear back if you want to do an update closer to the time that you think it's going to be ready to launch. It'd be great to share that again.
Absolutely.
This is not the last you've heard from us. Thank you all.
Awesome.
All right.
All right. Thank you. So I'm actually a little bit glad that segment took longer than our normal 5 minutes, because our next segment with Todd Gunther is actually going to have to be postponed to next week. Todd reached out to me last night that next week would work better. So I'm going to shuffle a little bit with the agenda, and I wonder if you would be ready, Timothy, to talk about the breakout review from last week, a conversation I wasn't even here for. So
I'm ready to go. Are you able to put the document up on the screen?
I will. Here, let me make sure I've got the right document. And are folks able to see that?
There we go. Okay, so let me summarize this. It was a really robust conversation with a lot of great ideas coming up. I separated what people said into 3 categories. There's the existing resources that people should know about. This is by no means an exhaustive list. It's just what came up during the conversation. But, you know, good for people to take a look at this. And if there are, just a second, I got a cat rubbing it up against my computer screen here. If there are other resources that are missing, you can feel free to put them in the chat for everybody's benefit. Other ideas that we would like to see for resources. This is a interesting list because it's full of common sense ideas that seem like they should be fairly easy to execute and probably are not. But some of the low-hanging fruit in here would be a resource info pamphlet that just sort of lists out some of the available resources that would be available to people. Things like, you know, I mean, getting people housing upon release is very important and a lot focused on that. But somebody mentioned that, you know, sometimes people just need like a ride to where they're going. And, you know, having support for that sort of thing is great as well. There's this mention here of a no wrong door model. That seems, of course, like something that we would need to work up to. That's, you know, on the list of big deal interventions that we can work toward. This notion of being able to have brief interventions while people are still in the Pierce County jail system, which would look like being able to do some motivational interviewing with people to help them focus on what their goals might be and how they could be helped around that. Seems like a great idea. And then, you know, several ideas for getting people straight into housing. This idea that, you know, like 30 days short-term access to housing should be a normal thing. Various ways that faith community can help people get into housing, things like that. And then there were a list of not so much sort of like, you know, interventions or resources that people would like to see, but just broader policy ideas that were brought up during the discussion. A lot of focus on the sort of, you know, red letter aspect of being a felon and how destructive that is and how we might be able to mitigate that in various ways. And one person talked about how, you know, ironically, when you are leaving prison or jail, that is when your support systems that you've developed while you were in jail are systematically cut off. And that doesn't seem like a good idea. So that's the overview. I refer you to the document for detail.
Awesome. Thank you as always. And as a reminder, that document is posted on the pchomeless.org website as well, so you can take a closer look at it there. Any thoughts or questions that people want to add related to last week's conversation before we start talking about this week's breakout? All right. So this week's breakout takes a little bit of explanation, which I'll provide. So last Tuesday, not this week, but last Tuesday at the Tacoma City Council study session, the staff from the Department of Neighborhood and Community Services did an update regarding to homelessness and the city's homelessness policy. And one of the things that they brought up is a property that's at 34th or 35th and Pacific that the county is handing over to the city of Tacoma with the understanding that the city will work with partners in the community to create an additional shelter site of some kind on that site as a temporary shelter to serve up to 50 individuals. And in that presentation last week, the city noted to city council that in the next week or two, they hope to be coming back to council to inform them more about what service provider they've been in conversations with. What the steering committee folks during our meeting on Wednesday thought, well, maybe the coalition in this week's conversation with each other in the breakout can help inform the city what would be the best kind of shelter to be on that site. So that site is one that has been used for campers, those staying outdoors already, but it's not been a managed official site of any kind. How large is the site? You know, I'd have to dig into the news release that came out from the city of Tacoma last week to see the size of the site, but it's actually adjacent to a site that the city just had an RFP request for proposal to build affordable housing, and Mercy Housing is going to build affordable housing there. Yeah, thanks Jay for the information that it's 2.9 acres. So long-winded way of getting into our breakout conversation. What do we believe what kind of shelter should the city locate on the 34th and Pacific property. Keep in mind the types of shelter that exist already in the city and across the county, and what's missing and what people might actually use. Because what we really want to do is advise that the city work with a partner to create something that actually will be used, not something that furthers the talking point that people refuse services. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break everybody into small groups of 5 or 6 folks. We'll spend the next 15 minutes having a breakout conversation with each other. And I ask that someone in the breakout room take notes, paste them in the chat when we come back in 15 minutes so that Timothy can create another great summary. All right, so away we go. We will be back here at 10:02. Welcome back, everyone. I see everybody flowing back into the room. Good to see. One of the best things about coming back from breakout conversations is suddenly there's all these cameras on, and then they get turned off. So appreciate seeing everybody. I hope that was a good conversation. And please, again, as a reminder, paste the information from your chat conversation into our chat so that Timothy can pull together a summary document afterward. Because we don't do this just to hear each other talk, although networking is definitely a big part of doing these breakout conversations. So hopefully that was fruitful. Let's move right along. One thing I wanted to share is that, well, I wasn't here for the conversation about this last week, so I'm happily surprised to be reminded that this next week on May 5th at 4 p.m. is a networking social hour. So this is what we talked about as having an in-person opportunity for folks to network and get together. This will take place, and I'll put this in the chat, take place next week at Tacoma's Seven Seas Brewing and Tap Room down at 2101 Jefferson Avenue. And everyone's encouraged to come have a coffee or a beer and kick back and get to know each other in person, like 3D space. So that'll be something new. Let me put the information in the chat, and just so that you know, that is posted on the pchomeless.org site on the front page. So where you go to look for other meetings, this meeting is on there as well, but this one's in person. So hope folks can show up. Let's shift over to our regular government updates. And first on the list is an update from the city of Tacoma. I know Caleb couldn't be here, but I believe Matthew is here. So there's Matthew, and you brought a friend.
Yeah, everyone, here with my sick little toddler this morning, so bear with me. So yeah, Caleb's not here, so I'll provide some updates for you all. The Beacon Activity Center, the phase 1 of that remodel has been completed. And so they've been able to provide 23 beds nightly, but as of June 1st, they'll be able to increase that capacity to 40. And then they should be at full site capacity of 50 beds in July of 2022. And then also for the inclement weather shelter at Lighthouse Activity Center, that's going to be standing down tomorrow. And all the individuals there are working on transition plans with the operator. And we've served 150 folks at that site. And then, as Monique was saying, 82nd and Pacific, we're finally getting close to that finish line, getting power next week. So yeah, it's just been if something can get delayed, it's been delayed for this one. It's just been, everything's a supply chain issue, as Monique is well aware and has been very patient, and her staff's been great. So we're excited for that to roll out. So I'll put my my contact info in the chat if you have any other questions. So thank you.
Perfect. Thanks for being here, Matthew. Appreciate it. And bringing an extra guest.
Okay, thanks.
Let's shift over to Jeff Rogers from Pierce County Human Services.
I don't have any updates for today.
Wow.
Wow.
All right. Well, we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I leave all the good stuff for Garrett and all the work going on that he's doing. That's the good county work he gets to share.
Perfect. All right. Well, that was quick and over. So let's go to Valerie for Pierce County Rental Assistance. Valerie?
Morning. Just real quick, we have a ton of outreach events scheduled throughout the county at not only the Pierce County Library, but also the Tacoma Library has been added. So that's super exciting. So I will put a link to all of those locations. We're also going to be out here at a big event in the Key Center here in the next couple weeks. And of course, our amazing partners at Tacoma Pro Bono are with us every step of the way. And so we're just continuing to move. I can't say enough about our 9 amazing nonprofits and our partnership with the City of Tacoma and City of Lakewood. It's been fantastic and one really we should all learn from. So it's been awesome. So yeah, we're just going to keep moving. We still have about $30 million to get out the door. And we project to be near spending down by September with a permanent program coming online sometime by around January.
Fantastic. Thank you for that update, Valerie, and for the good work. And next we have Jenny from the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here. Local COVID data. So this is similar to what I shared last week, that as everyone has seen, cases are rising a bit in the county. Fortunately, hospitalizations and deaths remain very low. And I looked at the data last night. And in the last 2 weeks, there's just been a very slight uptick, but we are way down from that last peak we saw at the beginning to middle part of January. Like I don't have the percentages right in front of me, but it was a huge peak, and we are still very, very, very low compared to that. Every case, every hospitalization, every death, of course, is important, and we want to prevent those. But things are looking relatively stable. Washington DOH recently reported that unvaccinated folks are 4 times more likely to be hospitalized. Their most recent data, and more than 2/3 of COVID deaths are among unvaccinated or partially vaccinated folks. So still want to press that message that vaccination is the very best protection we have. So I will, of course, drop our vaccine information in the chat and our data page if folks are interested in that. We appreciate you all raising awareness about our Test to Treat program. So that is a program where someone that meets certain criteria, including high-risk folks and folks living in congregate settings, are high risk for COVID and for complications due to COVID. If you work in one of those settings and have someone who tests positive, you can connect them to the Test to Treat program, and that is they can get a free telephonic medical visit and then get a prescription for COVID treatment medication. So we are just trying to kind of push information out for that. I'll drop some of that information in the chat, and if you have questions, you can follow up with me. I may connect you with Matt Brignall, who's the expert on that on our end. I unfortunately signed on late this morning, had kiddo medical appointment, partner is out of town. But I know Verna shared about the MRC work and with our STD team partnership to do a pilot project to bring STD and sexual health education and resources to people experiencing homelessness, specifically at some encampments in Tacoma. So that's exciting. We're still asking folks to spread the word about syphilis. I will share our flyer and some facts on that. Congenital syphilis is up, and we want to make sure that folks know that that is easily treatable. And so we appreciate you helping get the word out about that. And then finally, I just wanted to say a couple words about our treatment services, opioid treatment program, OTP. I've mentioned in this meeting before, I've been meeting with folks across the department to get to know what others are doing that impacts or touches people experiencing homelessness. And I had an awesome meeting yesterday with folks in our treatment services. And so I want to make sure folks here are aware of the addiction treatment services. I'll drop a link to their webpage. If there's interest, that team would be really thrilled to come and talk to this group about what they can offer. including same-day enrollment into medical assisted treatment, MAT. They do contingency therapies for stimulant addiction, and they have many other services. They take walk-in self-referrals. So, and then finally, I'll share our naloxone or Narcan information. So let's see, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to noon at Pacific Avenue, the south entrance to our building, you can get naloxone kits and brief trainings. And then if you are an agency and want to learn more and get that for your agency, that goes through DOH. So I will share that information in the chat. Are there any questions for me?
I see Monique's hand
Hi,
up.
Monique.
Hi, Jenny. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks.
Good. So I was going to ask this privately, but maybe somebody else has a question as well.
Okay.
So, I'm going to be opening this encampment. I'm going to be getting 28 people coming straight from the street. What are your suggestions for me in terms of COVID? Do I test people when they come? Do I check vaccine? What do I do?
That is a fantastic question. Things have gotten really, recommendations have become a lot less stringent in terms of what you should do. My understanding is you don't have a congregate space, right?
Everyone has their own tent.
Everyone has their own space. Are there communal spaces? No, it's kind of
smoking tent in the kitchen tent.
Okay. It really is up to you. There isn't a requirement. If you feel that would help you and your staff and would help others who are coming into that space to feel comfortable. And then also, like I said, we have that test to treat. So if folks are positive, you can, get them right away connected with some medical advice and possible medications. But I mean, you could screen. I can send you our toolkit that outlines sort of some, it's a little outdated now, but it outlines some general screening procedures that you could do. But you're at a much lower risk since you're not in a congregate
Right.
setting and folks have their own space.
Yeah.
So
See, in my mind, I was thinking, we're outside. Everybody's got their own space.
outdoors.
Then I thought, well, you know what? I'm not a rule follower, so let me find out.
Yeah, the short answer is there isn't a rule, and you should do what you're comfortable with and what works for you and your relationship building with folks. But I'll send you a little bit of guidance. But really you're pretty low risk, like you assumed, with not a congregate space, it's outdoors. I would have all the hygiene things available. I don't know. I haven't been on site. Apologies. So if you have hand sanitizer, you have hand washing, you have things like that.
All that. Yes.
Signage about that and encouraging the good, hygiene practices.
Okay.
Would be
all
great.
right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so
But
much.
I'll connect with you via email.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Not seeing any.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that update. And I don't know if we have anybody from Pierce County Department of Emergency Management on the call, so let's pause for just a moment. I know they can't join us all the time, so wait a couple of seconds, and I don't see anybody. So
I reached out to Ivan. I didn't hear back from him. So
okay, yeah, they typically come when they definitely have something to share or something that they could use from us. So that's definitely understood. So let's shift to the next item on our agenda. And wow, we are actually on time with the agenda. When does that ever happen? Oh yeah, we missed a 15-minute presentation during this conversation, so that helps. So I was going to do a quick advocacy update. Let me find my document that I created. So in terms of opportunities for advocacy in the next week, as always, Pierce County Council agenda has not been posted yet. It's posted later today. I did want to mention that we could hear about activity related to the safe parking ordinance later today. The county, there's been a lot of chatter that the county executive may veto that legislation, but I have not heard an actual confirmation of that yet. So that will be something that we'll probably hear from the News Tribune, or if you use Twitter, on Twitter, that kind of thing. So that's what I know at this point about the Pierce County Council. At the Tacoma City Council, there's nothing related to homelessness on the study session coming up next Tuesday at noon. During the regular meeting, Tuesday evening at 5, there are 2 large property tax exemption votes regarding developments. One is a grandfathered development. I think it was 270 units or something. That is an 8-year property tax exemption. That means that is grandfathered. The 8-year property tax exemption is going away. That kind of exemption doesn't require the project to include any affordable housing. So that's one of the changes that the Tacoma City Council made in that MFTE program last year. The second development is actually using the 12-year property tax exemption, which does require a set aside for a number of units for affordable housing. So so that's what's on the agenda upcoming. What I wanted to talk about a little bit, since I wasn't here last week, I didn't really get to share about the April 19th study session presentation that the Department of Neighborhood, Community, and NCS and Neighborhood and Community Services did at the study session. And Matthew, as I go through this, if you want to add anything, please feel free. I'm not going to do a exhaustive review of what was covered. I just thought I would share a couple of highlights. Among those, let me bring up my photos here if I can find my cursor. All right, do a quick screen share. And apologies, I'm off for a week and now I forgot how to do things here. So I know this is a little bit fuzzy, but this is a screenshot regarding city-funded shelter sites. And what I wanted to call attention to here was mostly around the stand-down dates as it's listed here for the different sites that exist now. And note that Bethlehem Baptist Church, that has 40 beds currently, there's an extension being worked out right now. Altimer with Memorial Church with 32 units is ongoing, but Shiloh Baptist Church with 40 units is listed to stand down currently in September. So I just wanted to call attention to that. The other stand down dates for the emergency shelter sites are out into 2023. But I think it's good that we keep track of that as we follow and try to help advise the city on the shelter sites that they're funding across the community. Also during the presentation, I don't need to show the slide, but the city talked about shelter work that's underway, including the 82nd Pacific site that Monique is going to open up soon with the capacity for 35 folks, according to the city slide. The city also mentioned that they're working with the Brotherhood Rise to add capacity for 35 adults at that site. So I think we all want to see more shelter open sooner and more variety of shelter options to become available sooner. One of the things, though, is that I do think we should acknowledge the city has been able to increase shelter capacity of various types by 527 spaces since declaring the public health emergency around homelessness in 2017. So I did want to mention that. Oh, thanks, Garrett. I'm just seeing your comment about the number of shelter beds being what you have being fewer than what you see on the slide. Okay.
I mean, I hate to quibble, but it is about 150 bed different than
That's significant,
what,
yeah.
you know, shelter operators are identifying. Like they list 40 at Beacon when really it's currently operating at 23, right? Which, again, they're going to be back up, but
right.
Things fluctuate all the time. So if that's current status, or Nativity or the stability site used to have, you know, I can't even think of the number anymore. You know, more units. They have a maximum
right.
bed count of that, but they operate about 60 at capacity. So
got it.
Yep. People gotta quibble.
Yeah, no, it's good to know what the real numbers are. So in response to that study session conversation, there was and I'm going to do a screen share again here to show a document. There was a update provided to the city council members. I think this is the right document. Yes. In the study or in the council packet yesterday, that answers some additional questions requests for information that came up from council members. And what is covered here, and this packet, I'll put the link to the packet in the chat in a moment. But there was a map that shows the authorized shelter locations in Tacoma. You can also, by the way, see that on the overnight shelter page on the pchomeless.org site. You can see approximate locations of shelter sites. There was an update regarding the number of people who took services during encampment removals. I have opinions about this, but I'm not going to share those right now. And then you'll note there's a bullet point here about staff working with Pierce County to compile information and provide information in a future weekly report. So hopefully that 150 number can get worked out as that conversation between the city and the county goes on. And then every week in this weekly report, the city does provide an update of the number of people that the HEAL team contacts, and then the number of folks who are referred to or placed into the various shelter options that currently exist. Last week, it looks like 28 individuals were contacted by the HEAL team. 2 made it into shelter. So that is kind of a review from a week ago. The other thing I wanted to mention is that last night, the Community Vitality and Safety Committee of the Tacoma City Council had an update from NCS regarding city encampment removal administrative policies. And this update was to talk about the encampment removal process, especially it was largely focused on public property, but also referring to removals on private property. The city since January of this year has done 6 removals or sweeps from public property on city and state property. And this is just within the Tacoma city limits. This doesn't include anything that Colin DeForest is working on with the WashDOT folks up in Fife. And then the city's also performed 9 private property encampment abatements using a city council authorization that came to the city in December of 2021. Richard did talk with us and provide some photos. He's done so both on Facebook and through email regarding the private property cleanups. So that is ongoing. The only other thing that I wanted to share from last night's CVS meeting is that Allison Griffith, who is the, well, I can't remember her title, but she will soon become the interim director for NCS, mentioned that the city is looking at a system that is used in Washington, D.C. to or in Washington, D.C., they publish a schedule of encampment removals weeks ahead of time. There was a lot of conversation amongst the city council members who are on that committee regarding the need to provide more transparency, both for all of the community, so that there's an understanding both about the process, how individual sites are decided upon, that one site will get cleaned up and another one won't, but then also to give some insight into when sites will get cleaned up. The other thing that Allison Griffith mentioned was that the city's policies regarding encampment removal do allow the city to create what's called an emphasis area, where no camping is allowed at all. And this is, I believe, they didn't really talk about this, but I believe this is outside of the conversation regarding a camping ban, but that the city can denote an area as being off limits for camping based on safety. So there was a lot of conversation about in the city of Portland, where sites are not allowed next to an off-ramp from a freeway because of the safety issues of a car potentially going into the site. But Allison noted that is not being used in the city of Tacoma at this time. So I just wanted to provide that general update. Like I said, I will provide some links in the chat for those who want to go look at this week's weekly letter from the city manager. What I will say is that this administrative policy regarding encampment removal, a lot of us already know this, but it's all up to the discretion of the city manager. The city manager is the one making the decisions about which individual site will be swept or which site will not. So that's the way the process is working today. And I am seeing the mention in the chat about Linda Stewart's departure. Yeah, I'd have to confirm that, but I think that's right, Sally, that it might be end of the month. So any questions about where the city's at with encampment removal and all this stuff? I mean, I have a lot of questions, but like I said, that's another conversation.
I'm going to chime in really quickly. There's a funder meeting that has Fife and Lakewood and Puyallup and Tacoma and Pierce County in it. And one of the things we have been talking about working on is a kind of a joint approach to encampment removals. So that's something that's in discussion, would be having a consistent approach to that across the different cities, and the tribe land and WSDOT owned land, and trying to, so that's something that I think there's interest in and that we're going to work on. It's one of those trust building complicated things, and I'm not sure how it'll progress, but there's definitely an interest in making it easier. Like, I feel a little bit like I'm doing the devil's work in some of this, right? But making sweeps easier for the people involved in an encampment removal, easier for agencies to engage with folks because of all the times and things like that. So just want to let you know that I'm not sure that anything's pending, but there's a real interest in making it consistent. So we'll see how that shakes out.
Great. And one thing I will plant as a seed that maybe we can pursue with the city is, if they are going to start posting a list of upcoming encampment removals, weeks in advance especially, then maybe that can become a guiding document to help folks do direct outreach to those sites ahead of time, so that there's not the same kind of trauma involved with sweeps that we see now. Maybe we can learn finally, because we saw it was a different approach with the Evergreen encampment last fall, where there were folks who were able, from the Lived Experience Coalition, that were able to go in there and do some very supportive work building relationships before the sweep happened. And it seems like that would be a much more humane model going forward. The ultimate challenge, though, is if we don't have the diversity of locations and types of shelter for people to move into, we're still going to just see people move somewhere else a block away. Jay, you had some thoughts as well?
I've been working with Northwest Hospitality over in Kitsap, and they just did a sweep at veterans. They're doing that actually today. And I've been speaking to their HEAL team and their HEART team over there. And because of the time frame that they got before the sweep, it was weeks versus, hey, we're going to do a sweep next week and then going and doing it. There was way more opportunity to communicate with the encampment. More people got housed. If they had more housing, more people would have been housed. People still chose to move on or not go into services or not receive services, but the assistance was at a much higher rate, and it was much easier for them to deal with. They're actually storing their stuff, and they were able to tag their own stuff and decide what they were going to keep and pack it up. There was a lot more option, and it would really, really help comparatively from what I'm seeing over there if we just had a couple of weeks and a storage option and humanize the situation for people that are going through it. And possibly having that ability gives the outreach teams enough time to stock up on the stuff that those people are going to need after the sweep that is been destroyed or needs replacement anyway. So it really would give some people so much more ability to change the outcome of the situation if we had more time before the actual sweep itself.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Jay. And that's definitely something that we've advised in policy statements that we've made as a coalition before. It might be time to reiterate that. And I also want to note Richard's comments in the chat about after action reviews, and maybe an action preview would be even better. That was actually shared with those of us who were in the after action review from the Evergreen site. So we can help reiterate that advice to the city, and maybe there's an opportunity to do it not just with the city, but with others. So. All right, so let's shift next to something more hopeful, and that would be an update from Garrett on the Pierce County Comprehensive Plan to End Homelessness.
Thanks, Rob. I think the update I want to give is just a little bit about what's going on with the Community First Village. So one of the items included in the Pierce County budget this year is allocating $25 million of the ARPA money, that's the American Rescue Plan, the one-time funding, to a project model called the Community First Village. And I'm still just the teensiest bit unclear exactly what type of housing is going to shake out in that project. It's so this is a model that's based out of Austin, Texas, that is a lot of tiny homes and RVs and mobile homes spread over a substantial campus. And it's mostly permanent housing is sort of my take on it. But there is I think some shelter and transitional. So what that maps out to, I don't quite know. But the 25 million is kind of the beginning of what we would have to spend to create something. And that site has, I think, 250 or 450 housing units. It's slowly been growing, and I've not been tracking exactly its progress. But it's a neat site that's the folks that have gone there have identified it as being, like a really nice mobile home park. Right. So people have space, things are nicely landscaped, and there's a lot of community involvement, and it's heavily privately funded. And I don't exactly know what that means, like what their main revenue streams are, but less government funding involved in the construction. So that's of real interest to the county executive and the county council. And so 25 million was set aside. And I mention that now because we were just closing out, I think a week or two ago, the RFP for the start of spending that money. And that's looking for an agency to do most of this work, but initially a feasibility study. So that went out to bid through a public process, and 2 agencies bid on it, the Low Income Housing Institute, Lehigh, and Tacoma Rescue Mission. And I don't know the decision's been made on that yet. They've done a scoring, they've done oral presentations. And so, but that's going to come out, and basically looking at what are the costs, what would it look like, how would it all go. They're looking at a couple 20-acre sites. I don't know that one has been finalized, but they're sort of in the ones that I've heard about, and I'm living a little bit in third-hand information, but the ones I've seen they're near bus lines, but they're not in Tacoma, right? So they're typically along, the one bus route somewhere. And I'm excited for that project. It probably will end up being much more expensive than that 25 million, just in terms of building and operating, right? There isn't operating fund set aside yet. So I just kind of wanted to bring that in. It's a model of around 250 units that's, it's scaled to, right, substantially impact, right, our ability to find housing for folks. So it's exciting just in that. I think that it's a recognition of some of the real needs, and it would all be focused on people exiting homelessness.
And Garrett, just to make sure I've got it nailed down to, let me know if I'm wrong, but I believe this is actually creating, it is using, at least in Austin, they're using lightly used RVs and tiny homes, but they are permanent structures, or much more permanent, and it becomes permanent supportive housing rather than a temporary, micro shelter village, right?
Absolutely. And that's my understanding. How it ends up morphing in the way Pierce County decides to do it, that's the part that I think is,
right,
is sort of going to be shaken out when a feasibility study's done. And a lot of this requires some changes to zoning and, some challenging political, politically charged things like, about density and where people are living. And so it's going to take a lot of community support. And I think it's neat because it's putting housing, where we've not done it before. I mean, there is permanent supportive housing in Fife and Lakewood, but most of it's centered in Tacoma. And so it's nice to see some more being in communities that are, having folks becoming homeless, but not having, housing options there. So I think it'll be neat to add to our, right? It's not the only thing we're going to do. It's not, you know what I mean? It's kind of going to be a different part of the mix. And actually a lot what they look at, I can't remember what they're called, but they're mobile homes that are like kind of halfway between an RV and a mobile home. I'm trying to think what they're called. Anyway,
yeah,
it'll hit me afterwards, but it's again, bathroom, shower, all of that, but also facilities for more social connections, right? A bit more like a Quixote Village kind of model.
Yeah.
Because the one in Ording, again, has showers, bathrooms inside the unit, and then a central kind of cooking area. But I think these units will have cooking as well.
Great. Well, that's more to look forward to and hear about in the future. I told you it'd be something positive.
Park model. I thought of it. Park model is what that mobile home is called. I was going to get it.
Yeah, that wouldn't have come to my mind. Okay, so let's shift to the next item on our agenda, and that's an opportunity to hear from Jan about Safe Sites for All.
Yes, I'd like to invite anybody and everybody who's interested in Safe Sites for All to join us Mondays at noon on Zoom. Go to the coalition website to register to attend. The 2 big issues that we're addressing is the safe parking network. And we usually always are lucky enough to have Paula Anderson join us, who is the general manager of the Safe Parking Network and our angelic cheerleader for the whole program. And we're going through some changes because there's funding available, and we want to do the model right as we expand. So besides safe parking, we are talking about developing an emergency distribution network for inclement weather events. Where we're going to ask mainly churches to stock some items for our outreach workers to go to these sites. So far, we've had Gerald Daniels from Brotherhood Rise agree to be the fiscal agent, and Joe Purva from Lehigh Housing there on Hosmer Street, Aspen Court, to be possibly a distribution site. And so we want to be prepared to help our outreach workers reach encampments with supplies during inclement weather. So we talk about policy, protocols, sites, budgets, and all of that. So join us on Monday.
Thank you, Jan. And next is an opportunity for any other coalition committee updates. Anything that we want to share this week?
I don't have any updates this week. Hopefully next week.
Well, that means we can move on to good trouble announcements. Anything that folks want to offer that would be helpful for the full group. And feel free to use the raise hand function, wave your hand, or just unmute and offer your update.
I'm just going to jump in. I had both emails and a phone call from Maureen Howard yesterday. So she said she wasn't feeling great, but feeling good enough to call me up and tell me what I ought to be doing. So I think that's a positive. So she's soldiering along.
Awesome. Somebody's got to tell you what to do. Teresa.
She'd have to be 6 feet under to not tell you what to do anymore. So I think you're good to go. I'm sorry if I missed this because I had a little time I had to be out. Did you talk about the veto, is there any news about veto, no veto regarding safe parking?
So what I mentioned is that I'm, like everybody else, I'm watching to see if that is going to come up today. It was my understanding that if something was going to happen, it would happen by the end of the day today, regarding the safe parking ordinance. But I haven't seen anything or heard anything definite. Although I've heard plenty of folks who have opinions that think it's definitely going to happen. So we'll see.
It would be kind of a crappy move to do it at the end of Friday when no one could react to it. So I don't think he would stoop that low. I hope not.
Yeah, we shall see. Rosemary.
I just wanted to remind everybody that tomorrow, April 30th, is the last day for comments to the Home in Tacoma project. And if you've been meaning to send them a message about the importance of the work being done with any suggestions for anything they might consider, do it today if you can, if it's your work day, or do it by tomorrow if you want to put it off.
Yeah, that is a great reminder.
And you'll find the information at the city webpage with putting in that Home in Tacoma. You'll get information about how to do it.
Yep. Perfect. And I put information in chat just to make people aware that MDC's withdrawal management program resumed services earlier this week. MDC originally intended to open with 12 beds available, but the last I heard we had 15 folks in, 15 out of 16 beds full just a couple days ago. So definitely a lot of need for that service. So if you go to mdc-hope.org, on the website is the link to the withdrawal management page, as well as the phone number to call to see if space is available for detox. Others with information that they'd like to share? All right, so I also like to provide an opportunity at the end of every meeting for folks to provide feedback. What worked well this week? What was horrible? Should we just have somebody else host it because you're tired of seeing me? You can raise your hand and offer that feedback directly now. You can use the chat. You can also send an email to me at rhuff@pchomeless.org if you'd like to offer some thoughts, but I wanted to provide that opportunity now. All right. Well, if I'm not fooling myself, we are actually going to be able to end early. So I think we should seize that opportunity.